Okay, Richard.
Sit down? Okay.
I'm going to go sit down and shut up for once. Richard's going to do his fabulous duplicator for our demo tonight.
A couple of years ago, I was visiting with a good friend, fellow woodturner, and I was talking about my buffing table. Those of you who know me probably know the buffing table I'm talking about. And we got talking about some of the problems we were having, and he was having a problem because he wanted to make a series of little columns, but he wanted them all the same. And he'd been looking at some copying machines and duplicators, and we were talking about the table, and I was showing him how it was made buffing so much safer, and helped me anyway. And I suddenly realized that I had been thinking about making a duplicating machine unit before, and the problem I'd had was positioning a table just right on it. And here I had the answer with the little buffing table that I had. Because when you're developing it, you want to be able to adjust it easily. So that was the start. And this is the table that I came up with. A very simple thing, made of wood. And it has on the bottom a key. I'm hoping it's going to fit this machine. And two little feet, so if I sit it down on the floor or somewhere, it's going to rest on these feet, and I'm not going to damage the key. The other thing it has is a key. You can see it along here. Oh, looky there.
Oh, there you go.
So, the other thing that has to happen is this table has to be a known height from the center of your work, because you're going to mount your work between centers or in a chuck, and you want your cutter to be in the center. That would be this one. Okay. So it looks like it's in the middle. I had measured all this some time ago, and it seemed to be right. And I made this actually for my little Delta, which is a small mini lathe like this. And it seems they are the same. So the other thing I do is we have to lock the table down. Don't know how successful I'm going to be at that on this machine. Oh yeah, it looks like it'll be okay. Looky there. Just a nut in here so I can clamp that to the bed. Make it even more sturdy. There. So this is really fixed to the bed now. A lot of copying machines have a flat plate with a profile on it. And you have a stylus that follows the profile. You can have great big ones with hand wheels, you know, that go along and they're spring loaded and everything. But what I wanted was something that when I turn a piece and I say, that's it, that's just perfect, that's what I want to make. I want to be able to copy that piece. So it was necessary that this unit be able to copy a piece that's been turned. So in order to do that, I need another set of centers. And that's the purpose of this key here. By putting these on here, and the key, I know that these are aligned because the key here these are in line directly over the centre of the lathe. So I can put in here centres like these. And adjust them and tighten them up to hold a piece that I've turned between centres. What I'm going to do for this demo is do a chess piece. Some kind of chess piece. Not a black one, but a little chess piece like this. So I have a piece of wood here that I'm going to turn the little chess piece out of, little pawn, and I have here a pawn that I turned that I liked. I said, okay, well, I'm going to make a master out of that. Now it fits on a piece of 3/4 shaft like this that has a wood screw through it. So what I do is I'll face off the block I'm going to make it from, and I'll drill a 3/4 inch hole with a forcing bit in the end here, and a small hole in the middle for the wood screw to go in. And turn the wood screw in. I usually have a rubber dead blow hammer at home, but didn't bring it. You nodded out of that. There. Okay, so this block of wood is securely fitted on this little shaft, and this master is, by the same means, fitted on here. So what I can do in this instance is not do it between centres, but rather, and because I thought it would be easier for you to see and easier for the camera, just fixing this to the table, clamping it down. And now I can put my master in here, so I know now this is above the centre on the lathe, and I put my block of wood that I'm going to turn in here. And this time I did remember to buy a key. And this is another use, Dave, for collets. Collet chucks. Very convenient. Okay, so we have the normal lathe underneath that, if we turn it on, the piece we're going to turn is here. Okay, so now the trick is we need to have this one over the top of the master here. We have to get the bottom to line up. So if I had a square, I could put it on here like this, and I could pull it against the bottom one. Yeah, line the top one up. And anyway. Whoop. Okay.
Color code those things, Richard.
Yeah, I should do, shouldn't I? Don would come along and change the colour. That's what he threatened before. Okay, so I have this one. We know it's above the centre on the lathe, because when I built this I was fussy and set up the keys. And it's easier than you might think, because what I did was, once I got the height of this that I needed, I made the base underneath this, and this piece was floating around. I had the key on it. And so I just put a bar of steel between these two and used my square to come up and get them directly in line with that shaft and this shaft. And then I screwed it down to the boards. So it wasn't so hard to do. Okay, so we got this fixed. Got this fixed, we've got the tail stock up. Now, this is the cutter arrangement. And I wanted something substantial that's solid, wasn't going to flop around at all. So I believe this is 2 inches diameter, and has a steel plate on the bottom, and then it has some plastic stuck on that. I've started messing. I'm trying different things. This works pretty good. This is just melamine on the tabletop. I have another one for my bigger lathe that I went awful fussy with, and I cut a baking tin up, took the steel which had a Teflon coating on it and glued that to the top. And it's very slippery. If I touch this, it will slide all the way over and off the other side. But I don't think you need it that slippery. I think this is just about right here. So now the idea is that this is the stylus. This has to be the same shape as your cutter, relative to it's going to come up against your part that you're turning and stop it moving forward. So it'll move forward until this stylus stops it. So now what's important is that the stylus and the cutter are in line. Now you could back it off a little bit if you wanted to make this a little bit big. You could put whatever gap you put here, you'll make this that much larger. But I tend to make it so that it's square, and there are real key job this. There are more key than that. This key.
You ever thought about replacing all those things with thumb screws or something?
No, never thought about that. There is a flat on the side of here, so when I tighten it up, and I put the flat on so that it keeps the cutter level. This is along the lines, I guess, of a spindle gouge. Homemade spindle gouge. So I know I want it. Now when I set this up originally, I didn't have the handle on it, of course. And so I set that so everything was nice and square. Then I put the handle on and locked the handle, so now I can take it out, and actually I don't need this once I've set this up, because I can just bring the handle up against here and it's fixed for depth. Okay, any questions at this point? I'll just talk a little bit about how I made the master. As always, I make a sketch of something like this, and I laminate it. And then I print the sketch full size, like 1-for-1. And there's a little 1-inch square on here. So when I've printed this, I can measure it and see, is it really 1-for-1? And it is. So I know my scale of these is correct. Now what I do, next thing I do, is I cut them out as little individual parts. Okay, so for each part, I end up with, and this is the king, I end up with a little cutout, and I highlight on it the major sort of dimension change places I'm going to want to know where they are. And then I turn the part using conventional turning, and I'll take a magnet and I'll put this right on the tool rest, just a magnet on it, and then I line the tool rest up with what I'm turning. So I've got my diameters. The diameters I take right off the sheet. I don't measure anything. I take the diameter with a set of calipers right off the sheet, and then I'll come to this, which is up against the wood I'm turning, and I'll use these lines to transfer that diameter to the piece of wood. So I'll go in with a parting tool and make all the major dimensions that I want to have on it. Then all I have to do is blend it together, of course, and you end up with a piece that's been turned. Now when I turn this master here, and I turn the number of them, as you see, I filmed it and I timed it afterwards, and it took me 50 minutes to make this piece here. And that's really why you need a duplicator. If I wanted to make a chess set which contains how many pieces? 4, 8, 32. 32 pieces. It's 32 hours worth of work. Right, roughly. Besides the cutting of the blocks and the what have you. So now if I have a duplicator, it's not going to take me quite that long to do this one. So the beauty for me is that I don't have to measure anything, because I've got the stylus that's going to come against the block. And when I'm cutting it, I'm probably going to be here. Am I in your way? No, that's a perfect picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it fine. Okay. Well, let's see if we can cut one, shall we? No questions? No? Tool is loose. Guess I'm going to tighten that set screw quite up. I don't really think I need that. The other I'll just check that it's still level with the stylus. Got chips underneath it. Yeah. Seems like it wants to come out a little bit more. Normally if you do this right the first time, you don't have to do it a second time. Okay, it is back a touch. That would just mean it will be a little bit bigger. I'm watching two things at this point. I'm watching the distance here to know when I'm getting close, and I'm watching that I don't run uphill down here. I'm always trying to cut downhill. And if I get the cut around too much this way, that sharp edge is feeds quite hard. So if I come back straight, it doesn't feed doesn't self-feed as much. You get to a point where the stylus is up against the master on the top here, and it won't feed any more. Now I push against it, it stops. Just the bottom one is secured same way as the top one. I can move this back out the way and finish the top. Just helps it when you're taking a heavier cut. And I can turn this without even looking at it. Isn't that amazing? Because that shape is seared into my brain. Now we have a round cutter here and a round stylus. They have to be the same, otherwise you'll get some unusual results. Now, I don't know if anyone timed that, but it wasn't 50 minutes, 3 minutes. It's still not finished. It's got radiuses where you want sharp corners and stuff. So one way I can fix that is to use one of my little smoothing scrapers, and I made another little support. And you're all familiar with these, I'm sure, by now. And because I know the maker, he made me an extra one, so that I can have one for each direction I want to go. Because what you want is the burr up when you sharpen these. The last, I changed something now. I want to tell you I changed something. These used to be 20 degrees aside, resulting in a 40-degree angle. Well, because I like simplicity and I'm lazy, I sharpen on a little belt sander. And I have the table set on the belt sander to 40 degrees. And I recently learned how confusing that can be to people. I had a young fellow and I was telling him 40 degrees, and I sharpened his bowl gouge for him. He took it home and was using it. He brought it back, come back to see me, he was having some problem. And I said, well, I don't think you've got the right angle on the bowl gouge. Oh yeah, 40 degrees, just what you told me. Oh, okay. But I realized at that point that 40 degrees can mean different things. So I wanted to make it clear. This is 40 degrees. This is just a straight piece of wood. And this top point is 40 degrees. Well, that's what you want on your bowl gouge. I don't think I built a bowl gouge. You want 40 degrees this way. So when I set my little table, I've got my belt here, and I've got the table here. Actually, it's 50 degrees on the table, not 40, because 40 from 90 is 50. But that's where you want the 40 is here. And so I set at my table with my belt coming up here now. My tool rest is at 40 degrees. So I want to leave it there as long as I can. I don't want to change it. I don't have to adjust it. It's not one of these fancy ones you buy in a store, you know, with nice handles and everything. Mine's got Allen keys, and you know my trouble with Allen keys. So I want to leave that table at 40 degrees. So I thought, I wonder what would happen if I just ground this at 40 degrees. They work wonderfully, just as well as they did at 20. So now, anybody who got one of these from me previously, if you want to grind it at 40, it will work well too. And I don't have to change my little thing. So there's a number of ways of doing this. You could do this on a regular tool rest. This in the collet chuck. You don't need the table here anymore. So if I was making a big batch of these, I'd probably go to this phase first of all, and then put them aside, and then I just set up with a regular tool rest to finish them. Well, it's kind of convenient to have that above it there. Now there's no limiting factor anymore. We don't have a stylus on the top. You know, it's all hand controlled now. If you wanted to have a stylus and make the stylus this shape and use it in the other thing, you could do. Oh. I was maybe using the wrong one. Oh no, yeah, I was. Yeah. Too much talking, too little working. You mean like that, Jim, do you?
Hmm?
You mean like that?
Something like that. Isn't that much nicer?
Oh, lovely. Just lovely.
That's right. I expect to see no announcements next time. That'll be the one,
We're ready to sand, I think. Oh, no, I did bring some. Popsicle stick. That was for that. Oh, you're in line again.
Yeah.
You just love that spot.
Man of danger.
Yeah. Brush has got a little, the bristles have got a little hard. This is sanding sealer. Who knows what I'm going to put on it next?
2 minute polish.
No.
Novasilk, yeah.
Novasilk. Oh, you win the prize.
Better than toothpick.
It is.
But after Novasilk, it will be 2 minute finish. Yeah.
Found out your black polish I got from you there is really good for finishing up CA glue finishes.
Is it?
It worked great.
Yeah.
Gets all the little
Well, of course, the
ripples
CA glue is a plastic
Yeah.
finish, so it's for plastic
all the little
finishes.
tiny ripples out. And it worked good.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? You wouldn't think that would
Yeah.
do that. But
Works good.
I will tell you the secret to that one again. There's another secret. When you have an old car, you know, and the headlights get all misty,
Oh yeah.
it will clean it off. Just a paper towel. And so now, this is a polishing paste. It just polishes the surface, makes it smoother. I would normally have it running a little faster.
You didn't want to get anything on your.
That's right, so now we've got past that stage. High speed. Set a pause.
Be faster Yogi on it, didn't you? I'm on that trying to see it.
Yeah, he's getting good at catching this stuff. I seem to have picked up some black somewhere, I don't know where. Oh, off of this
Yeah.
steel there's some. See, I was trying different dyeing techniques. Some got on the steel, got on my thing, it's got on the wood. What a shame. Oh,
Antiquing, Richard.
yes, this is an old chess set.
That's very nice.
Take it back off the steel. Now, 2 minutes. Oh, sorry, guy. Yogi. As slow as it will go, Yogi.
There's a force field around.
There's a field around there, right?
Oh, yeah, I can tell you. I'm drumming up business here for you.
Okay, thank you.
Some people there want to buy some 2-minute polish.
Well, you don't have to buy that from me. Just go on our website, on the Northern Attorneys Guild website.
Okay.
Under hints and tips, I posted the formula there for the
Well, this, okay.
standing sealer and the 2-minute finish.
After all help.
Beeswax,
I'm looking after you.
With the pictures. The only word up there.
I don't think I sanded that outside corner there. Here's a little rough.
But you will, sorry. That was quick encouragement.
Gotta admit that was good.
That was
One thing that I didn't think of when I started going down this path was I have a couple of grandchildren. And one of the things I made earlier on was a little hammer, you know, like a gavel. Turned the shaft, made a master, and I turned the head of the hammer. And my little granddaughter said, "Oh, I want one of those." I said, "Well, you have to make it." So her and I out in the workshop, using this, me just making sure her hand didn't come anywhere near the collet chuck, she could quite easily manipulate that and made her own little hammer, which she's twice as proud of because she made it.
I knew you were going to say that, so thanks very much. He said there is hope for me. If your granddaughter can do it, maybe I can too.
I'm sure you could.
He's such a supporter.
Yeah. So, there it is, duplicated. Looks pretty much the same.
Very healthy dog.
It can't be duplicated, the other one doesn't have any black on it.
No. Well, I like to make them individual, you know, they're handmade. Yeah, the black came off the shaft, but I... And of course, when you're doing it at home, when it's quiet and that, you know, you concentrate a little more and you're a little more accurate and do things a little nicer.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. Richard, I noticed in the other side of your the guide that you're using, you got to cut narrowers that allow you to use narrower tools when you, like, instead of that
scuture gouge looking piece that you've got in, it's quite broad. So if you wanted to do very fine things in it, the other ends, no, it's, pardon me.
Oh, this?
Yeah, on this thing here, you see how that's quite broad,
Yes.
but that's quite sharp, I thought.
Oh, yes,
Was
yeah,
that set up so that you can use a narrower tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever shaped tool you want to use, you
mimic
have to have a stylus the same shape. And if you're turning acrylics, for example, you need different tools. Flat top gouge works very good for acrylic, or a double sided one, like a skew but with a round end on it, around those skews. And the other thing that I do when I'm home, of course, is I put my dust collector right here, going, the pipe going out the back. And all the chips, and especially with the acrylics, you know what it's like turning acrylics where they wind round everything. In fact, you'll notice there's a little slot cut in here. Well, a piece of a plastic butter dish cut and just jammed in there, a little bit of hot melt glue, gives you a curved thing. So when I'm cutting the acrylics, the stream of plastics from the acrylics comes up, hits that, straight down the... So you don't end up with it wrapped all around your part, which is really nice.
I don't have quite as elaborate cure for that. I keep an old toothbrush, and all I gotta do is touch it, and they're gone.
You always got a better answer, haven't you?
No, I didn't say it was better than yours. Not as elaborate, anyway.
No, but it's,
Yeah.
I found that when they build up fast, they just wrap right around their type, and they didn't just
You can't see
fall
what
off.
you're turning then.
No, you can't see. Not being able to see isn't such a problem here, even if they do wrap around, because you know where you are here with the master. So you know once you reach that, you know you're there.
Richard, the beeswax finish.
Yes.
Do you use that generally on a lot of things, or that's the first
No,
time
I've started using it more recently, and the thing that brought me back to it was I have a bowl upstairs in my room that I turned with my father 40 years ago, and he kept bees, and he put beeswax on it as a surface finish, and it still looks the same today as it did back when we turned it together. So I thought, why am I not using beeswax? And then I saw a turner online use beeswax. Oh, it was Richard Raffin turned a little bowl in about 2 seconds flat, burned his beeswax in it, rubbed it off with a rag, and beautiful finish. I thought, geez, why aren't I using that? So I've tried it, and it does work. But I would normally buff that too. I haven't buffed anything here, but while it's on here, it's ideal for you to...
Well, for something like a pen, beeswax won't last, right?
I have no idea. I don't know, Yogi.
I don't know about that.
Because I've
actually.
even had used like friction polish, it doesn't last on pens at all.
Yeah.
Skin oils.
Yeah, but so here's a case where I had a pen that I gave to somebody 20 years ago, and I saw them a few years back, and they still had that same pen, and they used it all the time. And I had used carnauba wax on it, melted it in, melted it in,
Top wax.
and it was really quite the same.
Because what will happen too is a patina will
Yeah,
develop.
it did develop a
Yeah,
patina.
Patina,
Yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
But like friction polish, I've used that on pens, and in 3-4 months it's gone.
Well, I know
Yeah.
you've told me that before, Yogi, and I've not had that experience. And I did that test, you remember I brought in, where I rubbed it every day for a month, kept it on the dining room table, and I did a test piece, because you told me that.
Yeah.
My wife thought I'd gone nuts. What are you doing? That's a test.
Richard, could we just blow off the chips off of your end of your tool so that they can see the profile on that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to. Okay, there. Yeah, just so that people can get a look at what that was like.
Yeah, toothbrush, best thing to keep beside your thing.
Do you have any plans on sharing your plans?
Oh yeah, I can share the plans for this. Really, the table is pretty straightforward. It's a wooden platform, you know, that you have to produce. I like the key idea and I like the feet idea, so I can put it on a shelf, you know, and it doesn't damage the keys. I have plans for all the bits and pieces. This is steel. This is a special piece. It's just for balance. Because otherwise I put them on here and it's forward. When I would be setting it up, I'd put it on and it would always fall forward. So I put a little weight on the back just so I could sit it there and it wouldn't fall over. So these pieces are steel. This is wood, MDF. Just a wooden bottom with a wooden key slot in it. So it's all easy to make. I can sell these pieces if somebody doesn't want to make them themselves. When you're setting it up, you need a length of 3/4 inch bar stock to go from one to the other so you can lock them together and set them up over the thing to set your key correctly too, you know, on this before you screw it down. I haven't written up a method for doing it, but I did draw it. And I've told you before that I use Draft Site for drafting, which was a free drafting program for 2D drafting that was almost identical to AutoCAD, and it's been free for years and years. They sent out a notice saying that as of the end of this year it will no longer be free, and all the free versions that are out there will cease to run. So I'm now Corel CAD man, which is a very similar program other than it has 3D abilities as well.
You could have just set the time back on your computer every time you want to use it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Probably someone will come up with a hack, but I don't want to mess with it. Yeah.
Richard?
Yes.
There's one more advantage here you didn't mention.
Okay.
The 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch deep hole in the bottom. Put your lead slug in that to weight, do bottom weight.
Yeah, it's the size that fits the old cent piece, actually. Like a 1 cent piece, if you happen to have a sack full of them, you know, a sock full of them, holding the door open somewhere.
Good for it.
They're worth almost a cent a piece. You can fit them in there, and then your name, maker's name, little disc, you know, engraved, laser engraved on the top of it. Yeah, that's the plan.
I'm ambitious about it, but just like I got a chest set at home, there's lead weights in the bottom,
Yeah,
and this is just ideal for it.
yeah. Well, that's part of why I did it that way. No, I forgot to mention it.
No.
Part of the plan. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. You're welcome.